Today we're getting under the hood of Latoya Dwight, a mother, wife, sister, friend, dope auntie, BBA, MSM, RHU, ChCC, REBC, humanitarian, women's health advocate, driven and highly successful employee benefits consultant hailing from Atlanta, Georgia by way of New York. She created and founded the Fibroid Pandemic as an answer to the frustrations she experienced during her tumultuous journey with uterine fibroids. Its mission is to provide resources to humans with a uterus who are seeking a holistic approach to overcome the debilitating disease of uterine fibroids through education, support, community initiatives, and tools to best advocate for oneself. The Fibroid Pandemic has become Latoya's passion, so much so where she has curated her very own 5K run walk called Run F.A.R, F-A-R, 5K. Its mission is to bring awareness to the global pandemic of fibroids. F.A.R is an acronym for Fibroid Awareness and Resources, and a portion of the proceeds and profits go to PAD, the pandemic, Latoya's budding 501c3 not-for-profit, created to help eliminate period poverty and unnecessary hysterectomies, one's uterus at a time. When she's not working, Latoya absolutely adores family time, catching up with her girlfriends, listening to music, twerking to any genre of music imaginable, yes, even gospel, exploring the outdoors and gym time. Latoya believes that there is good in everyone and is inspired by witnessing people overcome seemingly unfathomable obstacles. She lives by the motto, believe, build, beautify. Welcome, Latoya.
Thank you so very much for this conversation to get under the hood. I tell you every opportunity that I can. There are so many people who can be having this conversation with you right now, and I do not take it lightly. So thank you for having me.
So if it's okay, I would love to get started. My first question, Latoya, is really about that inflection point in your life. What actually got you into health and wellness? What inspired you?
It was a journey that inspired me. It was my personal journey that I experienced with uterine fibroids. By the way, they are non-cancerous tumors of the uterus. Statistically, about 70% of humans with the uterus, also known as women, will develop fibroids. 80% are Black. And the way that my journey started, I used to say that it was by happenstance or by mistake, but I truly believe it was by divine order. And just to give you some background, my then boyfriend, who's now my husband, when he and I decided that we wanted to be monogamous, we did not want to have an unplanned pregnancy. He and I were both very busy corporate professionals and just did not want to have an unplanned pregnancy. So we decided together that I would have the IUD and Marina IUD implanted. 5 years later, it needs to be replaced. I went to go get it replaced. And my OBGYN, who I had been going to for 12 and a half years, and that half is important because I really, really, truly loved her, right? So 12 and a half year relationship. And she was unable to locate the IUD, which I thought was kind of weird. So she asked me, "Hey, did you take it out?" Now, mind you, I'm in one of the most vulnerable positions, spotlight, legs up on stirrups. And she's like peeking at me, like, "Hey," pops her head up. "Did you take it out? I don't see it." And I'm thinking, like, nope. I didn't know that was a thing. So I didn't know, maybe it fell out. I had no idea. She goes, "Well, let's send you into ultrasound to see if we can locate it." And I go, "Okay." I'm not thinking anything of it. So this was an ultrasound literally performed in her doctor's office. She didn't tell me to come back a couple of days later. This wasn't across town. This wasn't at an outpatient facility. This was literally a ultrasound being performed by one of her employees in her doctor's office. So I literally go like 3 doors down the hallway or maybe across the hallway, something like that. And the ultrasound tech, amazing bedside manners. She's helping me get undressed, blah, blah, blah. She performs a topical ultrasound. She was unable to locate the IUD. So then she does a vaginal ultrasound and she was able to find it rather easily. As I'm getting back dressed, she asks me, "Hey, by the way, Latoya, how are your fibroids coming along?" And my response was, "What's that?" Her face looked mortified. And her facial expression kind of startled me. It kind of worried me. And she played it off kind of casually. She's like, don't worry about it, kind of stuttering a bit. Don't worry about it too much. I'll let the doctor explain. I'm like, in my mind, that was awkward. I go, okay, no problem. Get back in there with the doctor. And the doctor is pulling up her schedule, her calendar, to reschedule me for another date because by that time, so much time had passed during my doctor visit that it was necessary for her to reschedule me to try to attempt to take the IUD out again. And as the doctor pulls up her calendar, she's just talking about all these different date options. And I go, can we pause for a second? What are those fibroid things that the ultrasound tech, the specialist, mentioned to me? And the doctor, she then grabs the file and she looks at it. She goes, well, yeah, there's some rather large fibroids on your uterus. Do you plan to have any more children? At this point, I believe we had just gotten engaged. And my response was, I mean, are we planning? No, not necessarily, but we're not trying. I mean, like, we're in a committed relationship and we're soon about to be married. I mean, if I just so happened to get pregnant, it wasn't going to be a problem. It was going to be okay. But no, we're not planning. We're not trying. And so she says, because of your age and you do have one adult child, I recommend a hysterectomy. Literally that fast. And my mind is like blown. And I'm like, time out. Can we talk about what they are? Like, how did I get them? Why do I have them? Are they sexually transmitted? Is it in my DNA? Do you take the IUD out and they just go away? Like, do I stand on my head and twirl 3 times? Like, what the heck are they? And so she says, well, they're just like kudzu. You cut them out and they're just going to grow back. That's why I recommend a hysterectomy. I don't know about you, but whenever your doctor of 12 and a half years compares your womb, this is the essence of where life is born, where life is formed. When your womb is compared to kudzu, weeds that grow outside, outdoors, that is very off-putting. I was extremely emphatic about not wanting to get this hysterectomy, so much so to where I was just like, you know what? Let me just gather my thoughts and I'll just call you guys back. I'm going home. But for the record, I do not want a hysterectomy. Needless to say, a couple of days later, they called me back to schedule the hysterectomy that I was emphatic about not wanting to get. I know you're just doing your job, but if you would please have the doctor call me, my OB-GYN. I don't want the office manager, the assistant, the NP. I want my doctor to call me. And she did. I ripped her a new one. I did not use one curse word. I did not raise my voice. I did not go ghetto girl or whatever you want to call it. I was very emphatic about how appalled I was, how taken aback I was by the fact that she would go as far as to have one of her staff call me to literally schedule this hysterectomy that I was so emphatic about not wanting to get. Now, Elizabeth, I don't know what it physically feels like to be in need of a hysterectomy. Whatever that may be, I can imagine you probably don't feel very well. I did not feel sick for whatever that may be. And so, to the doctor's defense, she did apologize. As a follow up to the apology, she says to me, you know what, Latoya, it sounds like you need someone who's going to listen to you. And at that very moment, like this weird light bulb, not a bright light bulb, but like a really weird light bulb went off. And I literally felt like I was in a twilight zone. And I'm thinking, like, who have I been going to for 12 and a half years? And so that started my 4 year long journey. I did my own personal research. I mean, grassroots as it can get, boots on the ground as it can get. I went to different seminars, different coaching. I joined and paid a lot of money for different coaching programs. I started to do yoga and qigong. I adopted doing different breathwork techniques, and I did the whole eat for your blood type diet. And I went vegan and I went vegetarian, and I eventually decided, you know what? 4 years is long enough. I had enough accidents, enough pain and pressure. I decided to have uterine fibroid embolization, known as UFE, also uterine artery embolization or UAE. Um, with a doctor here in Atlanta, Georgia. It is an outpatient procedure, it's non-invasive. I left with a Band-Aid. The cramping that night within like the first 24, 40 hours was very intense. However, I was back on my feet in no time and able to get back to work. So I posted about it on my personal Facebook page. And so many people started to respond between text messages and DMs and telephone calls. It's just like blowing up. And I remember my cousin saying, "Did you see your Facebook?" I'm like, "No." I went to go look at it. And as I pulled it up, I'm kind of like laughing as I'm logging into my Facebook because when I posted about my experience with fibroids, it was kind of like, "Hey, if you experience this, go get checked out, ha ha ha. I went through this crap, didn't really understand the depth of how many women were being impacted, how many families were being impacted." And so it was very lighthearted video about I was under the anesthesia talking about the land of the Smurfs. And these people are saying, if I would have read your story, your post sooner, if you would have did this sooner, I probably from men saying I probably would not be divorced because I may have better understood what my ex-wife was going through. My 20-year-old daughter, if my 20-year-old daughter had I known what to look for, how to understand this, had I heard your story sooner, I probably would not have allowed my 20-year-old daughter to have a hysterectomy, and now I'll never be a grandparent.
Wow.
So much going on. And that literally was like a light bulb. And I'm like, this is bigger than me.
It's interesting. I've been talking to women about a lot of different health conditions. Fibroids has been one of them. And the story you shared is not uncommon. And that was what was so shocking to me to hear, like nearly like a parallel story. And so as I hear you describe this, Latoya, with so much passion, but articulating each part of the journey with such specificity and accuracy, it seems to me, this situation is much bigger than you. The opportunity to really think educationally, the fact that you could impact people. And I think it was really interesting. I wanted to jump in when you said the doctor said, "Well, it sounds like you need a doctor who listens to you." I was thinking, oh my goodness, listen, like to see you, to know you for 12 and a half years, to see you, to hear you. And the fact that they would even call you back to schedule a hysterectomy when you were emphatic about not wanting it is crazy. So yeah, I could see the alternate universe. So anyway, you post everything on Facebook. I just want to go down this journey and then open up this next part, which is you started hearing from all these people. Holy cow, I know someone who's been through this. If I'd only done this or only done that, and sort of talk about bold moments. So you had it. And what was like the first thing you did after experiencing that?
I cried. If I'm not mistaken, if my memory serves me correct, I believe it was either on a Wednesday or a Thursday in September of 2019. And I cried. And one of the main reasons why I cried is because about a month before that, my husband and I had a conversation. And I said, I feel like I'm being called to do something greater, something better, something more, something grander. And I said, I don't know what it is. And my husband's like, okay, well, you'll figure it out. And I kept saying, I feel like I'm being pulled. I feel it in my gut and my soul. Like I can feel it. Right at that very moment when this is transpiring, my cousins call me text messages, DMs, blah, blah, blah. I knew at that very moment, that millisecond, that this is what I'm supposed to call, this is what I am called to do. This is it. This is my answer. I had no idea what that meant. I um I remember I was actually at work and I had to excuse myself and go kind of collect myself in the bathroom because I cried. I cried because there were so many different emotions. Like, oh my gosh, like wait a minute, what do you mean your daughter? Why didn't you tell me? This could help me possibly. What do you mean your ex-wife? Why did no one's talking about it. And so as I started to have conversations with my close friends, about 50, 60% of them also experience fibroids. And I'm like, what's going on? No one was talking about it. And after having conversations with my friends and my family, I realized my mother had fibroids. She had what's called tumor surgery, quote unquote. Back then they called it tumor surgery. It was fibroids, right? Because that's what they are. They're tumor, they're non-cancerous tumors of the uterus. And my mother in love, she had them. My husband's godmother, she had them. Probably three or four of my, let's say out of 10 best friends, 10 close friends, maybe five of them, six of them have fibroids and or had them. And so it's like and I realize one of the main reasons why people don't really talk about it, number one, because they don't really understand it. In Western medicine, there has yet to be a true known cause of fibroids. However, when having these conversations about fibroids, a lot of the most common symptoms surround around bad periods. I mean, we're adults here, right? We're going to get raw. Bad periods and bad menstrual cycles to a point to where, we're talking, humans with the uterus, women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, having accidents after wearing substantial protection. And I'll tell you from my experience, I had a ultra tampon, a overnight pad, which practically felt like a depends. And I would wear absorbent underwear, some shorts, and then my outer layer clothing. So I was literally quadrupling up. I was embarrassed. I was suffering in silence. And a lot of women experience the same thing. No one wants to talk about, oh, I just had an accident at 35 years old. It's like literally I changed my protective sanitary products, and literally an hour later, I had an accident. And it's so unknown, it's so foreign that you don't even know how to even form the conversation, how to fathom the idea of what your body's doing. So I realized very, very quickly that's one of the main reasons why nobody talks about it, because of that menorrhagia being one of the most common symptoms. But we're talking pelvic pain and pressure. And Elizabeth, I don't mean the good pain, right? I mean, baby, I don't want to be intimate. It hurts. It's not pleasant. I don't like it. I don't feel sexy because I haven't had, you know what, in the past 4 days. I haven't defecated in 4 days. And I don't mean to get gross, but this is what we face. We're bloated. We're not fully voiding. We're stressed out. Then you get the brain fog. You don't know if you're coming or going. And it's like you're having like this weird out of body experience that you just cannot articulate. And then when you find out that everyone else, not everyone, but practically everyone else is experiencing just about the same exact symptoms, if not more, you're like, wait a minute, we got to do something about this,
It is so much bigger because you can go and you can quantify it. But when you start to qualify the experience of uterine fibroids, it isn't just the physical, the mental, the psychosocial. So talk about, like, first of all, thank you for the way that you've shared and articulated it. How would you want to talk about that aspect? The combination of the physical, the mental, the psychosocial, all of the dynamics at play that you are finding it challenging to grasp.
It affects, well, I'm going to speak from my personal experience. It affected and still continue to affect to a certain extent my self-efficacy, tremendously my self-confidence, my social life. I would find myself, I'm type A personality, honey. I am the most confident thing walking this face of earth. And I would not want to go to one of my best friend's birthday party because my period's on, it's on day 2, and this is the worst day for me. And I don't want to show up and have an accident and have to go home or have to be humiliated. So, not only from that aspect, but also from a professional standpoint, I know people who've had to pass up job promotions. So, it affects you professionally as well. And what I mean by that is, if you want to get a big VP job and you're going to be traveling across the country and across the globe, you got to plan your vacation and your travel time around your period. People don't realize that. You have to. And not to even include, having such bad menorrhagia to a point where you become anemic and you have to have blood transfusions. And the anemia affects your hair. Your hair starts to get brittle and fall out. Your skin you develop this hormonal acne. So I have these old pictures where I don't even look like the same person, or then your nails are so brittle, like it's like you're not even yourself anymore. So the anemia affects your hair, skin, and nails, and then you develop pica because you have almost zero blood count almost, and you have this urge to eat anything of non-nutritional value like ice. So if you see anyone chewing on a cup of ice, they're probably anemic, and they may want to go get checked out. But not even that. Getting back to the micro aspect of it, when I realized that the daughter I never had, my niece, two of my nieces, but the one who's auntie's favorite and everyone's knows, so it's not a secret. When her OBGYN recommended a hysterectomy or surgery in her early 20s, oh no, absolutely not. That's when I decided to take this thing a lot more serious.
It's like I'm sitting here listening to it. When you live with these chronic conditions and something like that, like to sort of plan your calendar. Day 2, I have my period. Day 2, it's going to be a bad one. Can't do anything. It's going to so you are jerry rigging your life to survive. So all of this turns you into this big advocate in the face of the fibroid pandemic. Tell us about how it began and, what you started with and where you're going with it.
So literally that moment when I began to cry after making my Facebook post, I knew this was it. This was bigger than me. And one of my best friends and I remember specifically, it's like yesterday, I was in the car headed to work, and she and I have our morning talk, right? Encouraging, conversation. You're going to make it through this day. This is going to be a great week. You got this, girl. And we started talking about it, and I go, well, what am I supposed to do with all of this? Okay, I had this light bulb moment. This is bigger than me, but now what? She goes, start an Instagram page. And I go, girl, first of all, I don't know much about social media. And then what? She goes, you'll figure it out. I go, okay. I start an Instagram page, then what? So if you go to the Fibroid Pandemic on Instagram, probably a year, I just said coming soon, fibroids coming soon. And my daughter niece, right? I was talking to her one day and I said, I would love to create this logo of a face of a woman who is in distress, but I don't want it to appear that she's in pain. And I said, I want her to be a Black girl, but I don't want her skin to be brown. And she's like, Auntie Toy, what are you talking about? I'm like, I don't know. And I go, I want you to be able to see the pain, but I don't want you to be able to see her eyes. And she's like, oh, you're nuts. So literally, as I'm talking to her, she sketches it on her notepad. And we're on FaceTime and she shows me. And when I tell you, every hair on my body stood up. I go, oh my God, she's the fibroid pandemic. And so early on, the tagline was, if fibroids were external, would you take them more seriously? Because in my logo, you'll see these weird, so my logo's green. It's like a Tiffany green color, but you'll see these little tumors, these bubble looking things on the face, which exemplifies the uterine fibroids. But if they were external on the face, would you take them more serious? And then you'll also notice this weird squiggly thing, which is supposed to be a teardrop, which allows you to know although you can't see her eyes, she's in pain. Her lips are very full. Her nose is very thick. So you know that she's a woman of color. And the reason why I wanted that is because so many women of color aren't, now, not just women of color, obviously 70% of women across the globe, because again, this is a global pandemic, but those with, women of color do experience them more aggressively and earlier in life. So as I digress, she told me to start the Instagram page, coming soon, coming soon, coming soon. And then my husband and I, we have like these brainstorming moments, right? So one day I'm trying to have a brainstorming moment. He wasn't really in it. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to bed, whatever. This is just a waste of my time. The next morning, Elizabeth, on the way to work, he's on the way to work, I'm on the way to work. He calls, he's like, I got it. Create a provider directory. And I'm like, You got what? What are you talking about? He goes, well, create some type of website. He didn't say provider directory. Those are my, create some type of website where people can go in and find all these resources that you're talking about. I go, okay, great. So then that's when I determined to get a little bit more, to hone in on what our goals and our mission. And so I'm very, very clear on what the mission is to provide resources to humans with the uterus who are looking to overcome uterine fibroids by way of education, community initiatives, et cetera. And I go, that's it. That's exactly what I want to do. So not only do we have the website, the fibroidpandemic.com, but we have built out the infrastructure for our provider directory so that I'm going to say, I'm going to call them patients or humans with the uterus who are looking for resources. They can go online, they can create their own profile and be able to search for a provider or a resource, whether it's a provider that performs minimally invasive procedures, non-invasive procedures, major surgeries, a dietitian, a fitness instructor, a mental health therapist, every aspect of the healing process you can think of. We're going to have those providers there as part of our community so people can be able to have it as a resource.
That's amazing. I think it's, of course, a brilliant idea. I think it'll be so helpful for women. Is that going to be based on location as well?
Oh, yes. So we are based out of Atlanta. So it makes sense just to start locally and then expand. But we already have relationships with literally doctors across the globe. So the goal would be to expand it locally in Georgia, then expand out to different states, and then reach out across the country with those individuals whom we have relationships with, and then go global.
And I kind of wonder, like, I'm just now actively brainstorming with you. I wonder if, when we're going through these types of conditions, do we start with looking at, the lifestyle aspect first? What do you think, Latoya?
I am a huge proponent that let thy food be thy medicine. Let thy food be thy medicine. I mean, it's proven. I don't know what more people need to see. A lot of times they would say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, or they may say, oh, you're a quack. That stuff doesn't work. You need medication, you need antibiotics, you need. And I'm not saying that there is not a place for westernized medicine because there most definitely is. But there are also ways to heal your body from going the more Eastern route. But not only that, but creating what I call a complete paradigm shift in your lifestyle. So it doesn't only mean having a procedure, having surgery. It means really going to the core, the root of the issue, and making sure that you are adjusting the way that you eat, the way that you think, the way that you move, the way that you live your life so that you can foster more of a healthy lifestyle. So, for me, I started to develop, and this is a little bit off point, but I want to go back to make sure I mention this. I started to have these weird symptoms about 4 years after having a UFE. I started to pass out. I started to have heart palpitations to a point we thought I was having heart attacks. I developed tingling and numbness in my fingers. My ankles and my lower extremities were swelling. My toes were tingling and numb as well. And I also developed tremors. And all this was accumulative. It's not like one symptom developed and it went away. It started to accumulate. And to be honest with you, I thought I was dying. And my husband, between March of 22 and May of 23, my husband called the paramedics, 911 paramedics to my home probably 3 times. And outside of that, he probably took me 3 or 4 separate times. And the first time we went, they told me there was nothing. They ran every test possible and said I had anxiety and prescribed me Xanax. And I didn't stop there. I kept advocating for myself. And I literally, again, between that, almost nearly 18 months, I probably went to 15, 20 different doctors, Elizabeth, literally. I mean, I went to my family practitioner. I went to my OBGYN. I went to a different OBGYN. Not the one from 12 and a half years ago, the one, because I haven't been back to her, by the way, but the one I had been going to for the past 7, 8 years. And then I found another one. And then I went to a mental health therapist. And then I went to a gastroenterologist. And then I went to a cardiologist and a chiropractor. And trying to figure out what are the neurologists and trying to what are these symptoms, right? And it took I wore a heart monitor for 30 days. I had a transthoracic echocardiogram performed. I had a CT scan of the brain, MRI of the pelvis, everything you could think of. Every result was coming back negative. And after a while, I started to think, well, am I going nuts. I know what I physically feel. You know, they always say that the power between the correlation between the mind and the body is amazing, right? And I started thinking, am I driving myself crazy? Am I doing this myself? And I knew I was not. I knew I wasn't. And it took for the third or fourth cardiologist here in Atlanta to take me serious and to run scans of my legs and to realize that although I had amazing results with the UFE in 2019, and they did shrink by 50%, they were sitting on what's called your iliac vein. They were on my iliac vein, which is in both sides of your groin, your left and your right, and they were blocking the blood supply. They were cutting off my iliac vein, which is the main artery which recycles the blood supply from your lower extremities up to your heart. And she said, Latoya, I'm not 100% sure this is why you're having palpitations and passing out and numbing and tingling, but I'm 99.9% sure this is it. She said to me, it's not a matter of if something bad's going to happen, it's a matter of when. I don't know about you, Elizabeth, but when a doctor tells you that, you seem to have a newfound respect for life. And so I had to undergo a surgical procedure. I had a myomectomy in November of 2023, and that was probably the best decision of my life.
I'm in goosebumps because I can feel that feeling of like, what's going on? Am I dying? Type of thing. I'm so sorry. That is just so upsetting. That being said, the highlight was the one cardiologist who must have had another patient. And it's not that every doctor, it's not, some doctors are bad doctors. Not all doctors are bad doctors. They might not have seen it before. So if they haven't seen it before, and that's why sharing this story is so important, because it helps women, it helps patients be able to go in and advocate and say, I heard this story. These are, I believe I have this. Can we look at this array of options, like to helping the bigger population, the larger world, if you will. And so, you go through the surgery, you're out the other end, you're now big. Fibroid pandemic continues to explode. What do you see as next?
I'm living my life like it's golden. I don't have those symptoms anymore. Maybe very, 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 very little do I have the palpitations, but I mean, we're talking going from palpitations almost every hour on hour, very aggressive, to maybe 5 minor situations since I've had the procedure. So it's almost non-existent. So I like to say I'm living my life like it's golden. I'm back working out again, getting some vitamin D sun rays, spending time with my family, my friends, no longer putting life around fibroids. The fibroid pandemic it's growing. I'm excited to share that we are having our third annual Run F.A.R 5K run walk. F.A.R is an acronym for Fibroid Awareness and Resources. And this all started literally as an idea back in 2017. I literally have the emails to prove it. And this is our third year. It's going to be here in Atlanta, Georgia area during Fibroid Awareness Month. So Saturday, July 20th is going to be a Run F.A.R 5K. You can attend in person. You can do it virtual. You can gift a registration to somebody else. You can create your own team. You can even register as like a ghost or phantom participant. Every registrant, every participant will receive a finisher's medal and a t-shirt. We're going to have vendors out there. We're still in need of sponsors. And day 2, so that's day 1. Again, run, walk, jog, whatever you want to do. You can even cheerlead on the side, right? We need all the support. The main goal of Run F.A.R 5K is to bring awareness to this global pandemic of fibroids. And I say that because, I mean, they're out there walking for heart disease, breast cancer, Alzheimer's, everything else. So being that a huge percentage of humans with a uterus who contribute to this capitalistic society have fibroids, why the heck there aren't any out there walking for us? So I created my own, and I'm okay with that. And I tell you,
I think it's brilliant. I just have to say, I think it's brilliant. I think I want to point out one thing. What's interesting is, a lot of these quote unquote rare diseases are doing these walks. Fibroid isn't rare. If 70% of women, people with a uterus, have fibroids, it's not a rare condition. So I think it's amazing that you started this race. So let me let you continue.
I appreciate that. And I mean, it's not rare at all. And I'm so happy you said that. It's not rare. It's more common than what we need, what we believe it to be. It's just that we need to speak about it. We need to speak up. So that's day one. Day two is the Fibroid Awareness Brunch. We're going to have different experts come out to not only talk about the horrible symptoms, but also to enlighten you on a lot of the available resources as well. So we have a doctor who performs major surgery. She actually did my personal surgery herself. And I would be remiss if I did not have her, if I did not invite her. We're going to have an interventional radiologist to come out. We're going to have a woman who specializes in pelvic floor therapy, Aboriginal doctor. So we have the cardiologist. So we have a really good mixture of people who are going to be out there, and I'm super excited.
That's wonderful. That's going to be really special, and to have experts there talking about it. So if you have women who actually are living with fibroids and have them, and you have the experts, that's just going to be a really rich conversation. This has been an amazing conversation. I have one last question for you, because I could go on all night about the story and where you're going. This is a platform for you to give a message to women around the world of all ages, of all backgrounds. Latoya, what do you want to share with them?
I want to share a couple things. Number one, you have to and you must be your biggest cheerleader. I experienced it myself. I didn't realize how much of I was advocating for myself until I started to experience those quote unquote weird symptoms, non-fibroid related symptoms, which ended up being fibroid related. After going to all those doctors, number one, you have to be your greatest cheerleader and understand that, just because if your spouse, your significant other, your family, if they don't appear to be as interested or into it or as supportive, is not because they don't care. So try not to take that personal. People just don't understand it. Number one. Number two, I would say understand your family history. Have conversations with your mother, with your auntie, with your sister, your daughter, any female in your life. Have conversations with her, because it's not a guarantee that if they had it, you will also, develop it, but there's a great chance. But contingent upon your lifestyle, if your family was raised eating a lot of fried foods, tons of sugar, refined carbs, etc., processed foods, where you're not cleaning out your lymphatic system, there's a great chance that you will develop fibroids. And also have conversations with your significant other about what you are experiencing, because if you are just as confused and you're along your journey, you don't really know which direction to go, you can only imagine how much they don't know about it. So speaking up and expressing what you are feeling can help both of you. And lastly, I would say really get with a doctor who not only understands, but to your point earlier, they're open to giving you options. That's very, 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 very critical.
Latoya, thank you so much for getting under the hood with me today. You are extraordinary. Your journey was really hard, but I think the way you are giving back, I love the fact that you said that you feel that you have a calling, and this is your calling. Because if 70% of women have this, you can make a real difference. And so thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to Under the Sisterhood. If you haven't already, please give us a quick rating and review on Apple or Spotify. And make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn so you can hear from more amazing women. This podcast is created and hosted by Under the Sisterhood LLC and Elizabeth Elfenbein, produced by Elizabeth Elfenbein and Matt Butler, and edited by Matt Butler. The music is by Ayla Schaefer. Her song, Rose.